Hello and welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. What a whirlwind weekend it has been. We've done a marathon of shows, but this one is the show to end all shows. I guarantee you that. It's steeped in a subject that not a lot of people have knowledge about and need to know what's going on. We have a person who's been victimized by what's called electric stalking and by non-lethal weapons or direct energy weapons of sorts. James Walbert is with us tonight to tell us his story. And I'm, of course, with my co-host, Mr. Derek Fries. How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing, Steve?
Are you looking forward to tonight?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I can't wait to hear more about this.
No,
Ever since you told me about it, it's intrigued me.
Yeah. Do you know anything about? So we'll say DO, because I mean that's the abbreviation for it. DO, direct energy weapons.
I've heard of it for years. I'm not really that up on the topic, but hopefully after tonight I'll know a little bit more about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll bring James in, and we'll get the show started. So hold tight. Yes, you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Tonight, we will be discussing everything from non-lethal weapons to electric stalking, anything under this realm. It's a realm that not a lot of people know about. And our guest tonight is James Walbert. Walbert. James, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Sorry about the mix-up with your last name there.
Oh, that's okay. It happens.
Thanks for coming on tonight and sharing your story.
Well, thank you. Definitely thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We need every opportunity that we can to expose this. It's a very important subject. A lot of people are victims and they don't even really realize it. So
absolutely.
To get it out there, we need to.
So let's get into where it all started for you. Like we're talking 8 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. Probably 2000, mid-2000 or so to early 2001, I started experiencing very odd, like electrostatic patterns coming to my home. I started noticing very, odd things, mechanical problems with my cars, my vehicles, my electronics that were, pretty, self-explanatory, once I started investigating a little bit on my own. Well, then very shortly after that, I had made and developed an invention, and not very long after that, I had a person that was very persistent in wanting to invest in the invention out of the blue. I'd kind of discussed it with him a little bit, because he was and not very long after that, I started, looking to market the invention through a promotion company, and I was, kind of not really suspecting that, any, voyeurism or any type of, surveillance was going on at the time. I mean, why would I have, I live a pretty normal life. And then his persistence, eventually paid off. After he approached me several times to invest, I discussed it with my fiance at the time, the co-inventor, and, we both felt that, this was a person that we could trust, and we went ahead, and allowing them to invest. We drew up contracts and things like that, and not even a week after we had signed the contract and submitted everything to the invention company, he had approached me and told me that, I would start experiencing things that are, indicative to electronic stalking as well as electronic harassment and illegal surveillance. And then sure enough, I started experiencing my car all the things that were problematic before just increased 1,000%. I started noticing very large vehicles with antennas all over them, ham operators following me everywhere I go. My phones were being tapped. They had an element of, a preemptive, application long before. They were definitely prepared years before, I had ever, that he had ever told me anything like that. So, yeah, not very long after that, we started experiencing very, very odd things started happening. So, and it wasn't the things that were, unexplainable. I mean, I always had a way of applying some type of, technical application to it. The people that were doing it weren't expecting, for me to have prior knowledge of the technology back in like 91. I had studied a little bit and had been familiar with a little bit of the technology back in the early 90s. So they weren't expecting me to have any knowledge on it at all.
So who did you turn to then after you started to figure out something was going on? Like, was there as far as an individual, entity at first, not really. I had, researched a few thousand hours on the internet. I wanted to be sure that, what I was thinking, and pondering and what I was pulling in, the information that I was, considering myself and my thoughts, was accurate. And sure enough, I got on the internet and started doing a lot of research, and I was right. Well, I had ran into an activist out of Connecticut that was, and she still currently is, a federal tort lawyer. Well, and she was a very large, very, big activist into, stopping this. She'd spoken of, like Geneva conventions and world organizations and stuff, denouncing this type of activity. So I contacted her. And then she had contacted me back, and she said, well, I can't really do a whole lot. She said, but what I can do, is put you in touch with a guy that I know. Well, then shortly after that is when I had actually gotten confirmation of every single thing that I had, suspected the whole time. So, and he's a licensed private investigator that has the equipment that it takes. I mean, he has the means and the abilities to, pretty much confirm, a victim in just a matter of a few minutes. And sure enough, and that's exactly what happened. So, now
I had confirmation.
Yeah, you sent me a number of documents, obviously, and stuff that backs up your claims, obviously, stuff like medical court, even declassified Army documents on this. I mean, what do people think generally about when you tell them this?
Usually, as far as general public goes, like your friends and your family and things like that, I had watched, over the years, what had come to other victims of it, and I pretty much learned from their trial and error not to take the same steps that they had taken. That's why the information that I sent you doesn't lead you to somebody's constructed website, or it doesn't lead you to somebody else's opinion. And not that their opinion is, uneducated or, discredited by any means. The information that I send out is 100% factual. It has phone numbers on it. It has real-life people that you can call and talk to that will confirm. Every bit of information that I've sent out is credible, 100%, validated information. And the reason for that is because some of the TIs in the past, or the actual victims in the past, have sent out, people's, websites and linking information as groups, and, authorities or, other people that are of, in a position to do anything about this, to pursue it or to investigate it, they can't take that as credible information because it's not conducted by an educated professional, or somebody that has, a political standing or a licensed private investigator or an attorney. They have no social, status as far as like a reputable, credible, reputation. So, the information that I've sent you is 100%. And as far as when I approached people, I've met very little resistance. When I presented it to my doctor, he was interested immediately. He said if you have implants, he said, that he didn't know a lot about, electromagnetics or anything like that. He said, but I can tell you, if they're able to point this magnetic device at you, James, there has to be something in your body that they can track you with as a type of piece of metal or an implanted device of some kind. And he, shockingly, I was completely floored. you know, when he said, well, let's get you in for exploration and discovery of any and all foreign objects that are in your body, MRIs, CATs, X-rays. You know, he said, I'm more than willing to do what it takes. And I was like, whoa. I was very, very happy, you know, very, very happy. So, and as far as, like, you know, law enforcement, I've met resistance with law enforcement. So either they know about it and don't want to do anything, or they have already been, you know, briefed not to do anything about it rather than just to push them aside. So.
Now, I guess let's go back to you being an inventor and the invention that you that created interest, obviously, from this party, and that started the ball to roll, I guess. Why do you think they were so interested in that invention, particular item, that would cause this sort of chain reaction?
Well, I think, you know, it started out as, I mean, and it sounds kind of, you know, just fast, but I really think that it started out as simple, like electronic voyeurism. That's what there's a big thing about it here in Kansas. It's even, you know, it's such a big issue that if you get caught doing electronic voyeurism in the state of Kansas, you get the hard 40, which is 40 years without no chance for parole ever. So it's a pretty prevalent crime around here, and that's what I truly feel that it started out as. You know, there were just some people voyeuring and peeking in our window. Well, once the invention developed, and they saw the base net worth of, you know, how much money or the profits that it was going to bring in, you know, now they had something to, not only were they looking in the window, but now they had something to, you know, to actually take off the shelf also. You know, and then that became their means, you know, for motive, and you know, it just pretty much constructed itself into this huge extortion plot after that. You know, I mean, we were being illegally surveilled to begin with, you know, and then once they saw, you know, the technicality, because I have more than just that one invention. I have several inventions, you know, that are worth lots and lots of money. But this was just one that I had started to, you know, actually market and feel comfortable with and things like that. And once I realized, you know, once I got the very first phone call from the promotion company, you know, they say, you know, they're the ones that put it into a perspective for me that I wasn't quite sure of. They're like, you don't understand, you know, what you've done. You've made something that is worth a ridiculous amount of money. You've tapped into a market. You've tapped into like the third largest market in the world, beverages. You know, I mean, so, and after that, the harassment got really bad. Because then all of our suspicions were confirmed that this thing is worth a ridiculous amount of money. And then sure enough, that definitely to me would, you know, clarify any, you know, application for a motive. It would be for extortion, for the gains of profits.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, you pretty much know who this, you knew who the person was that was stalking you pretty much.
Yeah, definitely so. You know, I mean, prior to him telling me, I was, you know, pretty ignorant to the fact that we were being surveilled. I'm not a, you know, that kind of person. I would have never thought, you know, that I was being looked at or checked out or stalked. You know, I mean, I'm a very relaxed, you know, very collective person. I don't, you know, really see no reason for anybody to stalk somebody. That's just creepy as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, that's just, it's very odd and, you know, abnormal behavior as far as I'm concerned. To stalk somebody is just weird. But so I never had no suspicions until he started, you know, I mean, until he walked up to me and told me, you know, that this stuff was going to happen. And then sure enough, not even 3 days later, all of it started happening. You know, so what a coincidence. You know,
and he was up front with you about the methods that he was going to use, right?
Yeah, exactly. He had described, you know, several things that were going to happen. And then sure enough, those things started happening, you know, I mean, and I was like, well, you know, immediately I called, you know, authorities and reported him, you know, long before I started researching it, you know, and then once, I mean, and he already had the prior knowledge of how hard it was to get somebody to do something about this where I didn't. I figured it was a federal crime, you know, I mean, so I started calling, you know, and doing, you know, what anybody else would do. I mean, if a crime's being committed against you, you know, I mean, you have to, you know, handle it legally. So that's pretty much what I've done. And then, 5, 6, 7 years later, 8 years later, I'm still battling it every single day. And he knew prior to this that, how hard it was going to be able to, to actually get somebody to investigate this and do something about it without, defaming my character or, making myself or exposing myself to look like some crackpot, So
yeah.
he definitely, had every, right to be bold about it, because he truly felt that he was going to get away with it. And he didn't expect, for things to get this far. So.
Now, you're currently in court still, but you also have been. You were also the first person, I believe you were saying, to obtain a restraining order of this sort.
Yes. As far as I know, now the document that I had sent to you, that was the declassified program from the Department of Defense in the United States Army Intelligence Division. That was done by a fellow targeted individual also back in 2006, I do believe. He'd actually, produced enough evidence in court also, to, persuade the courts to the point where they were actually willing to listen to him and work with him and make certain, demands or requests from the government. So he was able to produce enough, real validated, information that would, draw a conclusion to one entity. Well, Don's a very smart person, he went about it very strategically. He, and they don't like the fact that, that those papers are out. Those are 5 leading non-lethal technologies that are being tested and have been being tested since, I do believe, the fall of 1998. And 3 of them are very, controversial non-lethal technologies, such as electromagnetics, microwave hearing, and microwave neural disruption. Those are things that have been reported for the past 25 years. And now we have in our hands hand-signed documents that were declassified from the military that were given to us, confirming 25 years of reports of people experiencing these, bizarre symptoms. Now we have proof that the weapons exist and are being tested. And he was actually able to force the government to declassify an illegal testing operation called Project No Form and release those documents under the Freedom of Information Act. So pretty much, though, now this technology has pretty much been, it's been tested by the Army or the government, whatnot, and it's been passed on to contracted out for firms or whatnot. There's actually other departments that are now working with this equipment or these techniques. Yeah, definitely so. Some of the companies are actually accessible online if you're interested in checking them out. The Sierra Nevada Corporation, SNC, is located out of the southern edge of Southern California. They're one company that's developing what they call a Medusa weapon, and it's a mob detouring. It's basically for crowd control, and they'll hit you with what they call microwave auditory effect. Unlike what they call a long-range acoustic device, is an LRAD. An LRAD is a very large speaker that's able to focus sounds into a certain decibel range that will make it very uncomfortable and almost impossible to endure, and it will make your enemy, clear the area, just due to the fact that it will literally cause your eardrums to bleed due to audible sound. Well, there are certain measures that your enemy could take to avoid that sound from bothering them, such as earplugs, earmuffs, covering their ears and things like that, and the mechanical parts. Well, the government took it another step further and made a device called the Medusa and that actually sends out microwave auditory effect. So you could stuff, a mattress in each ear, and it's not going to matter. It's going to send an audible sound straight to your auditory cortex, which is inside your head, and it's going to make you flee. It's going to incapacitate you to the point where you can't move anymore, and it's due to the fact of neural disruption. Another company is working on an active denial system, which is microwave heating, Ionitron out of Arizona, and Raytheon out of Texas as well as Wichita, Kansas. So that's where I'm at. So we have a lot of military operations that go on here in this area, and I truly feel that this guy that is doing this to me is related to them in some way, shape, or form. He has access to them. He knows somebody in the area that has the ability to obtain the equipment that is, equivalent to what the military has.
It's amazing, and we're talking about this, like you mentioned, obviously this technology, these methods, whatnot, have been used on the general public population for testing purposes and whatnot, without anybody knowing.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, it's not something that you would catch on to right away unless you have some type of prior knowledge of it. I mean, not a lot of people are going to suspect a lot of electrostatics, like high static electricity in their house as being a exposure to bistatic electromagnetic fields and things like that. That's usually going to be one of your very first signs. Is not your normal, consistent rate of static electricity in your house, but static electricity to the point where you can actually see very, very large chunks of lint, like full-size cat hair, lift up off the ground and float to your body and stick to it. That's not something that you see every day. But that's something that I experience on a constant basis, no matter where I'm at. And it's because of the electrostatics that are involved. They're using an old style of microwave radar, which is bistatic. It uses an ionic flux. And it's a positive ion with a negative ion charge in the field that will actually allow it to create an electrostatic charge in the area. And that's what we detected with the actual microwave radar. So it's not a very advanced system that they're hitting me with, but it's not too shabby either. I mean, the people that are doing it have dumped a lot of money into their equipment. That I would figure probably $80,000 to $120,000 just in their equipment alone. So
the main point, it's effective and it's working.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not digging it at all. I don't like it.
Let's get back to you. Obviously, with your health, I mean, this is really, really affected you and your family on so many levels.
Yeah, definitely so. With certain frequencies, being introduced to fields, of certain frequencies, they can, like you were touching base on earlier, it can cause thought disruption. Microwaves were designed to, disrupt electronic devices. The military had actually researched the technology and made the technology so proficient that they could actually use an optical infrared device and focus right down onto the CPU, the control pulse unit of a computer, or the electronic modulating unit of a computer, and it could send a small microwave pulse to that little tiny 2-centimeter unit and cause it to diffuse. I mean, so they've actually, the technology has come a long ways. And now they're, from that, microwave devices are designed to disrupt the functionality of electrical devices, including the human neurosynapse and the human nervous system. If it's electronic, and it will disrupt it. It will definitely cause it not to work anymore or not to work properly. So yeah, it definitely can cause some problems.
Yeah, and obviously the difference in frequency would result in in the different ways that it would affect you in particular, correct?
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, not only can they, with infrared spectroscopy, or they can actually, observe neural activity from a distance. They can actually see, neural functions or your brain's functions from a distance. And just like the documents say, up to 1,500 meters away they can do this. They can focus down on one human being and track them remotely through thermography or remote neural monitoring. And I mean, this thing will just literally go through, houses. I mean, it's radio frequency. anywhere that you can pick up a radio station, this thing is is capable of hitting you very much in the same way. So that's something that's very important that people know, is because it doesn't have any barriers. It doesn't have any boundaries. You know, I mean, you can sit in your house and listen to the radio. You know, I mean, you can go underground and listen to the radio. You know, and it's due to the fact that, you know, ground penetrating and wall penetrating frequencies, and these weapons work, you know, very much the same way. You know, I mean, radio frequency telemetry and trajectories and things like that are very, very important to these weapons because, like you were saying earlier, they are directed energy weapons. I mean, and there's a lot, you know, a lot more to that. They have to be pointed linear. There has to be a linear base of trajectory for them to be able to hit you. It has to be in a line directed energy weapons. It has to be directed right at your body. It can't be just in your general area. Yeah. I mean, it has to be pointed right at you. So they're able to mess with one person at a time, you know.
Yeah. Now you have since been able to find others and network with other people that have been affected in the same way that you have. In fact, with an outfit called Freedom for Covert Harassment and Surveillance. Can you let people know a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance was put together several years ago, back in late 2004, by Derek Robinson and Sheila Evans, their president and vice president, and several other members that have come and gone since then. And, you know, it's a very small organization to begin with. You know, maybe just a few people, 50, 60 people, you know, and they were all, you know, people that were, you know, very well acquainted with each other. Well, with them doing that, they had actually, you know, they started conference calls, they started networking, and, you know, and things like that, to basically discuss, you know, their problems. It was basically a you know, gathering of people that were able to, you know, have a common ground. You know, this was a place that, you know, other people that they were familiar with could turn to. They started, you know, networking, and they actually set up a website and conference calls. And on the conference calls is where basically people can, because there's nothing more, you know, that's the thing I've learned, you know, throughout the years of, you know, interacting with these groups, is that there's nothing, you know, more, there's no bigger, you know, spark of relief than to call a phone number and get on the phone with 50 other people that are sharing the exact same symptoms that you are, coincidentally. You know, then that's when they started realizing, hey, you know, we have a little bit more than just commonalities here. You know, we're getting hit by the same technology, I mean, and we're getting stalked by the same people, and they started sharing stories, and things started looking a little too coincidental. You know, so not even maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, they actually started, well, we all started looking for attorneys and detectives, and, you know, some of us, you know, had made moves before. I mean, but it's been going on for a very, very long time, a very long time. And FFCHS has now, you know, come to the point where, you know, we have, you know, sponsorship, we have members, you know, we had, you know, attorneys, we have detectives. I mean, we have real hard, you know, core, credible, validated proof of, you know, no, you know, psychosis or no, you know, paranoia or anything like that. You know, I mean, we have actual 100% proof. You know, and I'm one of the only people in the crowd, you know, that has, you know, the kind of support that I have, and I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm very lucky, you know, that I have, you know, but it's because I'm very strategic. I keep my eyes open all the time. I'm not going to get taken advantage of again.
Now, does a group, what are we talking about in terms of contact from people who are affected by the same thing, contacting a group? Are we talking like a large amount of people, or is it just a small number? Like, what are the numbers that are contacting the group with these stories?
Oh, well, just here in the States right now, we have probably upwards of 1,000 paid members just with Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. That's just one group. And in a few of the male groups, we probably have several hundred active people, a few, you know, from the same groups. So we're looking at probably, a few thousand, upwards of a few thousand just here in the States. And now we have, a few thousand in Europe. We just now became aware of a huge activist group out of the state of California against an array of technologies, chemtrails, nanofibers, electronic harassment, electronic stalking, and their group's 5,000 people. So it's getting bigger and bigger every day.
Now, you said a word that intrigues me and something that I've followed for a while, and maybe I'll ask you for your take, and if you know anything about it. You said nanofibers.
Yeah.
And we all know, well, I don't think we all know about how dangerous these things can really be. Now, are you familiar with Morgellons disease?
I am a little bit familiar with it. My main area of, as far as my main area of expertise is the technology, the bio effects of the technology. I study cognitive science, cognition, the cortical regions of the brain, neurology, things like that. Basically the weapons and how it affects our bodies. But there are other people that are in that area that we network with. A girl out of Texas has a website, Exotic Warfare, and she is, and she is really big into it. She's a huge activist against chemtrails. We also have a industrial toxicologist that we are, in conjunction with too, that is very familiar with Morgellons, and that would be Dr. Staninger. The Staninger report would be her. Yeah. I mean, we're all really good friends with her. I mean, and she is, she's actually doing implant detection and, Morgellons testings, and she's working with our groups right now. So, are you familiar with Ms. Staninger?
Yeah, I think you've opened a can of worms, James.
That's good.
Opened a can of worms. So what do you think? Do you think these direct energy weapons could be the end result, the symptoms of Morgellons, the fibers, whatnot, could be something that's related to direct energy weapons?
I definitely think that it would give, an area of, accessibility, because there are devices out there. I've studied both, ends of the technology, wireless, implant-free, and then, what I would call, the silver thread, and which is device implant victim. And both of them are, there's huge amounts of information out there that confirms both styles of technology. As far as the chemtrails, the nanofibers and Morgellons, I mean, there's no coincidence there. I mean, we start breathing these things in, and then we're hit with electromagnetics, and magnetics will actually pull anything that, like when you go in to have an MRI, if you have lots of dental work and stuff, you have to put a mouth guard in to keep the magnet from pulling your fillings out. If you have cochlea implants or cochlear implants, then you have to, wear earplugs and ear guards to keep them from pulling them out. The same theory applies. Electromagnetics would definitely pull out or pull to the surface these fibers that we're breathing in. So yeah, I think that without a doubt they are, hand in hand. They're definitely the same fingers on the same hand. They definitely coincide and work with each other. So yeah.
I think Derek is itching to ask you a question about chemtrails. Are you not, Derek? I know you're just revved up about the chemtrails bit.
There's a couple different things. Well, one thing it's kind of got me a little bit amazed. I guess in the last just over 10 years, they've really upped the sightings of chemtrails and everything that's been going on with them. And I also noticed indirectly, I guess, in the last 10 or so years, how they've gotten so anti-smoking. It's basically like they want to make it illegal for anyone to smoke. And I almost started thinking, and I heard this on another show, that maybe perhaps the cigarette smoke or the tar in it might be counteractive to whatever they're trying to spray. because I'm thinking, well, if they're trying to sicken everybody through the chemtrails and all this electromagnetic weapons, why do they care if we smoke so much? It just doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as far as electromagnetics are concerned, it definitely would make sense, studying it the way that I would study it. Because when you smoke cigarettes, whenever you smoke a cigarette, anytime nicotine enters the body, it will spark a neurological reaction. Your receptors become very, very active, okay, and it will start doing huge hormonal releases of endorphins and catecholamines and acetylcholine, tons and tons of neural secretions. Well, if you're an operator of this device, you want to have the least amount of neural activity that's going on that you possibly can, just for the fact that it will override the computer's ability to download something. If your transmission on your car is only capable of 400 horsepower and you throw 900 horsepower on it, buddy, you're twisting that rear end.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to be very successful. Well, the same theory will apply. And I'm not saying that's what it is, but any time that your neural activity increases, it makes it very, very hard for the operator because then the operator has to get up, off his armchair and actually pay attention to what's going on, start causing disruptions in other areas so that the computer can still compensate for what's going on. So substances, alcohol or cigarettes or something like that would cause huge amounts of neural activity. That's how I can see it from the technological point of view that I have. But as far as how it affects society, I'm not real sure, as far as the nanofibers go. But I do know that they do work with the weapons. So,
could they possibly be in the filter of the cigarette? Do you think?
Well, it might be. They definitely might be. Nanofibers are something, if there were something in there, nanofibers are so rigid that, if you're able to, retrieve a nanofiber, you could actually, hold it in a, pair of hemostats or a restriction device, and you could heat that thing up to over 4,000 degrees and it wouldn't even melt. You could, lay it down on a steel anvil and just smash it with a sledgehammer, and it wouldn't even lose its shape. It wouldn't lose its form. So if it weren't something, that was that, readily available or that prevalent, you would definitely notice it hitting your throat. It would become some very hard, brittle thing against your teeth or, something to that effect. These things nanofibers are made of nanotubes, which is some type of, very, very dense carbon. So it's very, very strong.
And when you look at them close up, you see that they're one within another. Like there's like many within another. It looks like straws within each other. So many hiding in between others. It's really weird. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and my guest tonight is James Walbert. Sorry, I almost did it again. And we're talking about non-lethal weapons or direct energy weapons and electric stalking. James, are you up for some calls later in the second hour?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
So if there's anybody who'd like to call and has a question for James, give us a call in the second hour, and the number is 914-803-4095. Now, I guess in the second hour we'll get more into the people behind what's going on, the methods, and more on the weapons, obviously. And again, one thing that struck me, and we talked. Well, actually, there's two things that struck me, and we talked a little bit about it on the phone the other day. One being the whole Dr. Roger Lear scenario with alien implants and EMF frequency, and how what you're studying and what you have been subjected to relates to what a lot of people are studying or researching in the paranormal or the we'll say the paranormal field, I suppose. and the effects it has on a person and the brain. And we'll definitely get more into your thoughts in the second hour on that. Now, since you have come out more open with what's going on in your life and your story and whatnot, doing radio shows and the group, and have you found things heating up, or have things subsided, or how are things now, like presently?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I'm really glad that you asked that. Because the more exposure that I've done, basically the more success that I have, the people harassing me are very disappointed in their tactics, because I wasn't supposed to be able to acquire letters, from state representatives and politicians, acknowledging this type of harassment and this technology and this type of atrocity, and supporting me in it. I wasn't supposed to be able to go to the doctor and explain myself, or in an intelligent manner to where he would actually comply. And not only has he complied, but he's in touch with a really good, a very good friend of his is one of the lead editors for the newspaper down here in Wichita, Kansas. And he's actually submitted my story to the local newspaper. My doctor has, so it's definitely not something yet. My harassment gets worse and worse every day. I mean, they'll disrupt my nervous system to the point sometimes where my hands will just tremble and shake. I'll get really super dizzy. I'll wake up with a big, huge burn on my face, and it's not something that is, but now that I've gotten my doctor to work with me, they try to do things that are, less noticeable, by a physician. So, but yeah, they pound me, and they pound me hard. They've burned up 3 TVs. I have a 2004 Honda Element, and they'll just make it fall right flat on its face by disrupting its ignition system. They'll tear up, anything that's electronic in my house at all. My fish tanks, the whole 9 yards, my computers, everything. So it's pulsing. Yeah.
There was one story that I heard. I don't think it was you. I think it was the other gentleman that I heard you on another show with. And the story being that he, in the neighborhood that he was living in, his neighbors were all sort of, I guess, in sync with what they were doing. They were walking in their doors at the same time, getting into the cars at the same time. And then eventually they were staring at him like he was an alien, and he found that this would continue even though he would move to another location, another city or whatnot. Are these the kind of stories that happen with this?
Yeah, definitely so. Gang stalking is something that is, because with the actual devices, you have to be within a certain range. It's a range of effectiveness. You have to be within a certain, this is where the radio telemetry comes in. You have to be within a certain range. 1,500 meters is more favorable, is what we're finding these days. Sometimes it's a little closer, sometimes it's a little further away. But, their favorite area is anywhere from 50 feet up to 1,500 meters, which is, roughly about 3,300 feet away from you. So, these people can do things, from that, within that range. What Aaron's experiencing is what they call gang stalking street theater. They will actually send in, small groups of thugs to, harass him or to bully him, or it could be a group of people, a local. This is where the ACLU came in, is because the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, these are, those, what Aaron's experiencing is what the ACLU battles against every day. And the ACLU is the organization for civil liberties. They're a union of people that are, in a position where they will, denounce these things from happening and stick up for him, basically, because he's a he's a United States citizen of America. He's a free citizen of America. He doesn't have to tolerate this kind of stuff because of his creed, his color, his race, his religion, or anything of the such. And his is a little different than mine. He still gets hit with electronics. His is more of a on-hands thing. You know, I get followed. You know, I mean, I have pictures of, you know, ham operators, trucks following me and things like that. You know, that's how I know mine's strictly, you know, electronic. But I don't get the gang stalking. I don't get stalked by people. You know, I mean, I get electronically stalked, which means that they will follow me around with very, very large vehicles covered with antennas, and it's no coincidence, you know, that you're there in the area when I start having problems, you know, every time, you know, I mean, so my, you know, electronic stalking is a little bit different than what he's experiencing. He could actually reach out and throw a rock and hit somebody. I couldn't do that. I mean, even if I tried, I couldn't do it. I mean, I have to bust out a set of binoculars and, you know, start looking around for, you know, suspicious vehicles, because my people are not interested in, you know, actual street theater or actual gang stalking. That's why the filing of the court documents that I sent you, as well as the granting of the type of, you know, protection from stalking that I have, was the very first one that was, you know, ever granted in the state of Kansas, and I do believe anywhere, that where an individual is actually able to prove that somebody is using electronics to stalk him, harass him, and terrorize him in his home and about and amongst other places. So that's where, I mean, that's very important, because this guy's not to harass me in any way, shape, or form, you know, and it's clearly written by an investigator in my orders that was signed by a judge of any electronic means at all. None. Zero.
So how hard or how easy was it to get this order?
Well, I'll tell you, I was real leery about it, you know, but I figured, you know, I've been through a lot in the past 5.5 years. I'll go ahead and take a chance. The first time I went in and filed, I ran out of time. I couldn't take the time off of work and things like that, you know, but I was allowed to file it. So I said, you know, this time I'm just going to go through with it. I'm going to see how far I can take it, you know, and if I, you know, get, you know, I mean, because even my doctor's behind me, he's like, you know, the best way to get this out there, James, is to, you know, give it to the local papers and, you know, just expose it. He said, and if you don't mind, I would like to, you know, submit your story to the paper, you know, and I was like, excellent, man. And he said, you know, and he said, but when you get out there, be careful, because you're always taking a chance of getting, you know, looked at kind of quirky, you know, and I was like, yeah, you know, so and I always thought of that when I was in court. I went up and filed the papers, and not even 2 hours later, I was speaking face-to-face with the judge, and the judge gave me no resistance at all, Steve. He's like, well, you've presented enough evidence to me that this is really happening to you. He said, under normal circumstances, I would not allow this to happen. You know, it's like, I would not allow you to file these papers. You know, I would not even consider it. He said, but you have presented enough evidence to me to confirm that this is really happening to you. And I was like, yeah, you know. He said, so I'm going to go ahead and allow you to file it. He said, I'm not going to issue a temporary order, you know, so there'll be nothing basically to supersede. Everything will be filed under this order and this, you know, these papers right here. I was like, excellent. So I showed up to court, and see, I have a live witness. You know, I have a person that's actually, you know, I have an eyewitness of this person using these trucks and these devices on me, you know, so I've got a little more of an advantage than what other people do. You know, because the guy talked to me at work, and one of my coworkers, which is a PhD orthologist in telemetry, as well as tracking electronically implants, you know, what a coincidence. He tracks animals for a living. You know, he's an orthologist. He's a bird expert, and he, tracks migrations of birds and predators and stuff like that, predator birds and raptors, and he's been doing it for 30 years, you know, and he's a very, very intelligent human being, and sure enough, he witnessed their truck on the property harassing me and stalking me and right at work. So I have an eyewitness to what's going on, an eyewitness that has prior knowledge of this, you know, style of electronics and, you know, this ability of these electronics. So it kind of worked out.
So I would guess this is not contained or just happening in the U.S. Are you guys getting stories from victims outside the U.S.?
Most definitely. We have a very, very large activist out of Canada. She does a radio show out of Canada, Shoestring Radio. Eleanor White. She is raven1.net is her website, and she's from Canada, so I do believe right around your area. And
yeah,
she is,
I believe I'm familiar with her. I think so. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we have, the European Federation out of Southern Europe and, well, actually Eastern Europe. They are, very, very big activists. We have the European Union actually moved to pass a ban against the weapons back in 1999. And what most TIs, experience is, well, these things don't exist. You're just crazy. Well, if these things didn't exist and the TI were crazy, then why did the European Union felt, so compelled, about these weapons that they actually banned them, under the Geneva, convention, that these weapons are, a horrible, criminal offense to even possess, let alone use. So it's very real, and it's very, the weapons are very real, and the occurrences do exist. But yeah, we have congregations on all 7 continents. I mean, all 7 continents, Australia, all the way to Canada.
Is there any cases that you know of involving these methods and these weapons that have caused death? Yeah, yes, without a doubt. We have a very recent loss in our crowd. Ananda Zurin out of Southern California. She was getting, pulsed to the point where, that's one of their favorite things, is to try to cause, a loss of life and make it look like it was a natural occurrence. They can actually send an EMP, electromagnetic pulse strong enough to knock out all your electronics. Well, if you can think about it on a human level, a physical level or a biophysical level, they can send the same pulse that's strong enough focused right on your heart muscle, and it can cause a forced heart attack. They can make you really super dizzy. At a half hertz of employment, they can put you to sleep. They can, affect the brain in certain ways. They can give you a full grand mal seizure, and they can lock up your neural synapse. That's what the Medusa weapon is designed to do, is to incapacitate you through neural disruption, which is a seizure. They will put you into a seizure, and it's, and then they'll walk up and handcuff you, and then, it's much like being tased, but it's being done wirelessly. There's no actual prod stick in your body and send electricity. The thing can actually hit you with 50,000 volts to your brain, from 25, 30 feet away, and it will literally lock you up into a seizure, and it'll just cart you away. There's lots of resistance down here, though, for that weapon, because that amount of voltage will literally cook your brain. To the point where you'll have neural damage the rest of your life. Yeah. But yeah, we've had a few deaths in the groups that have been related to these weapons. Amanda was, manipulated to the point where she had ran her SUV right off the road and down a cliff and was, killed right then and there. So. Okay, well, we'll take a short break. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and we're discussing non-lethal weapons or direct energy weapons and electric stalking with our guest and a victim of this, James Walbert. In the second hour, we'll take calls. If you have a question for James, call us at 914-803-4095, and we'll get more into the methods themselves, the weapons, and the people behind them, and theories as to what's going on when we come back in the second hour, so hold tight.
The K&M Paranormal Conference, Paracon2009.com. Check this out, folks. Many great speakers coming. I'm psychic medium Robbie Thomas. You best know me from a critically acclaimed hit movie, Dead Whisper, and the work I do with police and family solving crime. I am a prolific writer-author of the paranormal, with my 4th book titled The Dead Whisper coming out shortly, and I am a co-contributing author to 4 other well-known books. I am the producer and director of the newly anticipated paranormal horror flick Paradox, which will be hitting theaters soon. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio with Steve Genier. Keep it tuned here each Sunday at 11 Eastern.
Welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and tonight we are discussing non-lethal weapons or direct energy weapons and electric stalking with our guest and victim, James Walbert. Welcome back, James.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
We have. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We have a caller already. Are you ready? Are you up for a call?
I sure am, definitely.
Okay. Caller, you're live on Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Hello, caller. Okay. Enough of that. Okay, I guess we don't have a caller. We don't have a caller. So James, I want to dive into who's behind, or who do you figure is behind all of this? I guess we pretty much know that the government developed these weapons, but are they the ones behind this, or is there other outfits that are behind this?
There are other, private outfits that have been linked to it, such as what, you had kind of touched base earlier on is like, private contractors, developers, people that have received contracts from the government to actually explore this technology and to develop this technology to, its ability of proficiency. There are other, we do live in a free enterprising, country, or, a market of, actually the ability of marketing. There are other companies here in the States that are able to actually, make a device through reverse engineering that is, capable of the exact same style of effects, desired effects that the, government are developing right now. A couple of them are, out of El Paso, Texas. Lone Star Technologies or Lone Star Consulting out of El Paso, Texas can actually make you a custom, requested device, that are capable of doing things that are very much, or that are very similar to the devices that the government are working on right now. Consumertronics is also a company out of New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico area that are able to actually parallel the style of electronics and non-lethal weapons that the government is developing through reverse engineering also. So yes, and they're open to the public market. So say for, like if, Joe Blow wanted to pick up a device that was, capable of causing, the same desired effects that the Medusa weapon was, or the ADS, the active denial system is, capable of doing, all they would have to do is just, submit an application for a custom device and, come up with the money to pay for it, and then this guy has this device in his possession, to use it at his discretion. So, yeah, it's definitely, on the street now, rather where before it wasn't. And that's what I'm currently working on is laws and provisions, to enable that, well, actually to disable that from happening. They should not be able to have access to weapons that, electronic weapons that can kill somebody. They're worse than a gun, because you can just kill at will, and nobody would ever know.
At least a person with a gun you could see and the effects, obviously. But with these weapons, you have no idea what's going to happen. And in a lot of cases, even if you did see them, would you even know what they are?
Yeah, exactly. With a gun, you would have, validated physical evidence. You could actually link that bullet back to it. There would be forensics, forensic methods that you could go through to actually, trace that, that actual expulsion back to a gun, back to a serial number. There are, forensic applications that are successful in that area. And there are forensic applications that are successful to, being a victim of this harassment as well as, dying from this, exposure to this. There are now, but it's all very new. It's not something that, it's something that has come, that's something that has accrued over the past, 8 to 10 years of, forensic scientists and pathologists that are actually able to, autopsy a body and tell by certain, variables whether the person has been exposed to, to this, style of electronics. Was this the cause of their death? But it's not something that's prerequisite. I mean, these styles of electronics and weapons can cause a death that appears to be from natural causes, a heart attack or cerebral hemorrhages or, things that are indicative of that nature, So it's very, very hard to prove something like this with these styles of devices on the market, for the public to buy at will, So we need to have laws that are implemented to avoid that from happening.
Now, I was asked a question the other day. Now, would a rail gun be included in this class of weaponry?
Yeah, most definitely. According to the ATF down here in the States, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms Control, the federal entity, the ATF, they have actually, upon me speaking to a couple of the agents there, they had asked me, and they classified it as a handheld gun. He had asked me if I had actually seen the gun. And I said, no, I haven't actually seen the gun. And he went into a little bit of detail about, it being a gun. He, made sure that I understood that it was a handheld weapon that was classified as an electronic firearm, that these things, and that they are horribly illegal to possess, let alone to be pointing at somebody. He said, it doesn't matter who you are. He said, if you're a military entity, a federal entity, an agent, a police officer, he said, it doesn't matter who you are, James. He said, if they're pointing this weapon at you, he said, I can assure you that it's a federal offense. I'm supposed to be doing this, And he had actually suggested that, it probably wasn't a federal agency that was doing it. He feels that the weapons were more than likely stolen from the military and are being used against me right now. Then he put me in touch with other people to, confirm the reports of criminal activity and things like that. So, but yeah, it's definitely classified as a firearm.
Now, I want to reiterate to the listeners that James did send me medical documents, court documents, and declassified documents from the U.S. Army stating and pretty much backing up what he's talking about tonight. Now, to what extent have these weapons and these methods been used in say, Iraq, in Desert Storm and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, that's where they had, made their military debut. The infamous Voice of God weapon. It was no coincidence that, upon our, deployment of 1 million plus troops to the Gulf region, that, Iraq in 91 had the third largest, most formidable army on the face of the earth. 640,000 troops laid down their arms and walked out of the desert and gave themselves up. And it had a little bit to do with, our, carpet bombing and the physical activities. But if you do research, backdated research or retro research on the actual Desert Storm operation, and you start, requesting things under the Freedom of Information Act of electronics, you're going to find that the most prevalent thing over there were the debut of these weapons: the microwaves, electromagnetics, neural disruptors, MAE, which is a microwave auditory effect. It's a communicator of sorts. And these weapons were some of the most prevalent weapons being tested over there and are currently being tested over there right now for crowd control, remote influential technologies, and things like that. I can put you in touch with over 100 issued patents of this technology in just one email. They're all active patents, and they're all the technology, electromagnetic and microwave, based, and they're all currently being tested and used by the Department of Defense here in the States. So it has a huge, huge factor. That was their debut was the Desert Storm Iraqi War.
Now let's center more, get on the topic of the chips, the V chip and whatnot. Now, these are pretty much in the environment now. They're being tested now. To what extent are they out there?
Actually, there are, manufacturers of the chips that are actually, not only have they gone to the point of, research and development, trial and error through, legalities or, illegal activities as what, the Project No Form, actually where the declassified documents came from. That's a very, quiet, illegal military operation, or program that was declassified. That was something that was going on in the backdrop unknowingly to a lot of us, to the majority of us. Now, as far as and some of the technology does require implants. Verichip and other corporations have now gone, to the point of actually marketing their Verichip, or their implant to the point of, kind of like tracking your pet, like Home Again. We have a company, down here that is, Home Again. You can actually have your veterinarian implant a Verichip style implant into the back of your pet, your dog or your cat or your horse or whatever, and then they can track them with a satellite in a ground wave frequency network, which is much, like a cell phone. And if the pet was to become lost or sick or anything like that, they could actually monitor the pet's health as well as track them across the whole region of the United States. So, and now you'll find on their website that they're trying to, say, implants are good for keeping track of Junior, implants in here, there, or, anywhere on his body, and you can keep track of Junior 24 hours a day. If Junior was to, come up missing or abducted or kidnapped, we would be able to find him or her, and locate them a lot easier. So they're trying to, put it into a sociological application through, the little, white picket fence Ken and Barbie application. Well, you ain't cool, because your neighbors has one and you don't. That's pretty much how the website appears. So they're definitely, marketing to the public here in the States constantly.
Now these chips are also used in the tracking of products. We're talking about, big corporations like W-Mart, I don't want to say the name, are using these chips in their products for security, or not using them, but testing them out, I guess. Or maybe they already have them installed for security purpose, are they not?
Yeah, definitely so. I feel that that's probably where, they had actually gotten, that's originally probably what they were developed for, was to track, product. It made it a whole lot easier to just, give a UPC symbol or an RF symbol to, the majority of clothes or televisions or electronics, consumer products. But yeah, that's where you would see them most prevalent, and none of us have a problem with that. It's when they started putting them in our bodies and tracking us is where the problem arose. I'm definitely not a TV or T-shirt, and I'm not a dog or a cat.
But you're I know again with with the chip and the similarities with the nanofibers, being that they have a common thread, being that there are effects on the human body that they cause.
Yeah, definitely so. They're finding, anytime that you access this implant, setting a frequency to it and making it active, it causes it to heat up. It will actually start to, get very warm under the skin, not to the point where it will actually burn you, but it will cause, cellular damages to the area that's around it. It can cause, atrophic, symptoms like muscular atrophy or, MS and things like that, that are being linked to to the activity of these implants affecting the human nervous system. And certain types of cancers are being, found to be malignant tumors around the actual implanted area, and, medical ailments and conditions that are being linked, directly to the implants. So yeah, they're not, the human body is not something that was, made to, accept such things, You can definitely develop infections. One of the most famous cases out there, David Larson's case, that's how he actually had found his implants, was through a very bad skin infection just under his skin when he had went to his doctor, and his doctor had peeled back, a part of his skin to, take a small biopsy to see what it was. And sure enough, when he peeled back his skin and, attempted to retrieve a small, area of his, flesh for a biopsy, there happened to be coincidentally an implant right where he was at. So that's how he was able to get, his story out there, and the doctor knew it was an implant as soon as he saw it. It was definitely not something that had, been a natural occurrence in the human body. So.
Now, some people out there, some of the listeners are familiar with Dr. Roger Lear and the research that he does. And he deals with alien implants, people who come to him saying that they've been planted with an alien implant. They've been abducted and implanted. Now, what's your take on that?
I would definitely think that, in my own personal opinion, I would think that there's a very good possibility that some of it could be, validated or be very real. On the other hand, now that I've been in the groups and been studying the technology and know of, certain government programs and certain, military operations that are going on, I would, lean more towards, the X-File cases, where, some of them very well may be, illegal implantation or illegal abductees, of government programs, that are going on, much like the MK Ultra days or, the COINTELPRO programs and things like that. I can't, 100% validate that because we don't have things that are, in consistency with, being able to validate that with, incredible proof. But in my own personal opinion, I would think that, those two things would go hand in hand with each other. As long as you said that you were an alien abductee, you can get your implants removed, regardless of what the, the true legalities of the case may be. I think that they would actually, be able to use that to their advantage. Definitely so. With, stuff like that going on anyways, they could actually just slip it right in there. And like I said, that's just my personal opinion. I have no, credible proof to back up that statement, at all. But in my own personal opinion, that's what I feel is the majority of it. Is this illegal implantation.
This certainly sounds like the mark of the beast.
Yeah, most definitely. It's no coincidence.
Yeah, and it's funny how it's not funny, how all these seem to interact with each other. They're linked to each other with a common thread. I think that's scarier than it's funny. Obviously, it's very scary that all of this is going on around us, and most of us are totally oblivious to it going on, and that's the scarier part.
Most definitely, and that's where the gratitude and great thanks come from, people like yourselves, in your organization, that is willing to, that has knowledge of it and is willing to discuss it and to become proactive, in the exposure and the distribution of knowledge and basically making people aware of what's going on, because these electronics, they're not just capable of surveilling one person at a time. They're actually, some of their data systems are actually able to take on 300-400, upwards to a few thousand people at once, for remote behavioral influence tactics, street theater, military psyops and things like that. So there's a lot of people that are victims that don't even know that they're a victim. They just think that they have bad luck. They just think that, that they have insecurities. Because that's one of the very favorite things, for perpetrators to do is to destroy a homey situation. They'll disrupt family functions. They'll disrupt and destroy relationships with, erroneous thoughts of, promiscuity or, infidelities and things like that. And there are, 9 victims that were married, prior to their harassment are no longer in any type of relationship engagements at all. And it's no coincidence, that every single victim has the exact same story to tell. I think it's, it's ironic. I'm sorry, but any victims of, any 2 victims of a crime, very seldom are they able to, share things that are a strong 85%, coincidental. When we share in our groups, all of us share the exact same harassment. Our stories are the exact same stories with different faces and different names. That's the only difference. So, that's something that's, very consistent here.
I have a question in the chat room. Somebody wanted me to ask you about biotechnology. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, most definitely. They're definitely on the right track there. There are, that's what this, that's basically what the devices are designed to do, is to affect your biotelemetry, your neurosynapse firing patterns. They're designed to disrupt cortical functions. They're designed to disrupt, regional systems of the brain. They're designed to, I'll give you a rough example. If your liver requires 11 points of neural function to function properly and healthy, if you are being hit with these weapons, that neural function will be reduced to maybe 4 points of, ability. So throughout a period of time, your liver, lacking the other 7 points to function healthy, is going to start to show, organal and cellular degenerations. If it takes, 85 octane gas to run your car, and you start putting 74 octane of gas in your car, it's gonna run, but it just ain't gonna run real well. And the same thing applies. Definitely it is, bio, technology. It is all bio, telemetrically related to one another. Most of the implants are originally designed for neural prosthetics or neural prosthetics to the point of like memory recovery, being able to actually give a person that's paralyzed, the ability to talk, or move their arm and things like that. So they're usually, a biomedical, prosthetic device of some kind. But yeah, definitely. They are, hand in hand, one related.
Now, ultimately, where do you think this is all going? Why is this going on? Ultimately.
Well, I'm not. That's the one thing. Out of the websites that I've been able to post pictures on, and everything else, I've come up with a credible explanation for a strong 85% of the abilities, the electronics, the methods, and the application, the technologies, and things like that. But at the end of all of my websites and all the emails I send out is a confirmed personal scope on reality that I cannot find a reason in my head or in my spirit that would drive a person to do such a horrible atrocity to another human being. I'm not sure why. A lot of us believe that it's medical research. A lot of us believe that they're actually actual scientists, like consortiums of scientists that are out there studying the weapons for like a war theater application. There's a lot of different conflicting opinions that go out as far as the whole moral motive as to why is this happening. None of us really can come up with an explanation as to why. I'm not real sure.
You're listening once again to Nocturnal Frequency Radio with my guest, James Walbert, who is a victim of electric stalking and through the use of non-lethal weapons or direct energy weapons. If you have a question for James that you'd like to ask, give us a call at 914-803-4095, or you can ask it in the chat room, and I'll get it to him. Now, you and I discussed similarities between two fields with EMF frequencies and how they affect the human body, especially the brain. And it amazed me, and like I asked you, that in the research that I've done through the theories, obviously with paranormal investigations, being that exposed to these frequencies for long periods of time or great doses of it at one point will cause a person to hallucinate into thinking that maybe they're seeing apparitions and whatnot. Now, how has this affected you? Like, do you know that you've been? Has it been like a huge dose that you've been at one time, or is it a continuous thing with you, or was it a continuous thing with you?
No, definitely, and it's still today. It is a continuous thing. It pretty much doesn't subside. Unless I get into an area of like detectives or people that are able to in an area of authorities. Then it will start to subside a little bit. The frequencies will start to cut down. I can feel my nervous system start to relax. But as far as myself being hit with blue beam style technologies, and actually having visual kinetic disturbances and things like that, I haven't experienced any of that yet. And it's not to say that I won't. I haven't seen any shadow people, but I do know victims that have. I haven't seen like any type of holographic imagery equipment, but I do know people that have, and I do know detectives that are able to actually detect the holographic. It's called holography. He is able to actually detect the equipment and triangulate it and locate its logistic origin, due to certain maladies of like infrared and whatever it would take to actually make the. I do believe it's a type of ionic electrical activity that is what gives the holography its ability. I studied data holography and video ghosting 1 and 2, as well as video ghosting holography in a very high auroral activity, seen like the ionosphere. The project would be called Project Bluebeam, and they're actually able to, reiterate objects, through holography into the atmosphere, to make it appear that there very well may be an UFO, or some imminent, threat of doom, or some like a psychoacoustic projector that the DoD has been working on since like the mid-70s. Can actually project a paradox of doom inside the enemy's head and show them failure and doom and activity in front of them with holograms. But I have myself, and maybe once when I was a little kid, I thought that I had seen my grandfather's ghost. And that would probably be the only recall that I would have of real paranormal activity. And I haven't had any experiences like that since then. When I was a very small child, and it definitely was real. Long before I ever became a victim of anything. So, but I haven't experienced those things as of yet.
You mentioned Project Bluebeam and the holograms and stuff like that. There are a lot of people that, conspiracy or not, believe that technology played a large part in what happened on 9/11. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Well, I want to keep the, same, patriotic thoughts that, any person, of their country would want to keep, and apply it to, what we were all told, that terrorists attacked our country and, keep it on a, sociological level. But, ever since I've become a victim of the technology and learning some of the, the backdrop shadow conspiracies, learning about shadow governments, learning about, certain areas, because I'm not, I'm a skeptic, and I feel that, it's very healthy to be a skeptic. We can't, dive in head first, believe in every single thing that we see, so I've always become, I'm very skeptical, and I'm skeptical with, an open-minded strategy. I want to believe that, that, some horrible, menacing, terrorist group attacked our country, and I surely do not want to believe that our government would attack our own country to implement horrible laws of illegal surveillance and, communism. I wouldn't want to. I don't feel that would be a healthy, state of mind, living as a person in a productive society wouldn't want to think. That would make, a person very uneasy, to think that the government would go to such extremes, to test such technology, to test our government, to test our abilities as a military, action country, things like that. So, I don't know where my opinion goes as far as that is concerned. I don't really know if I have an opinion quite yet. I just think it was a very heinous, horrible crime, no matter who did it. But I have heard the same thing. I have heard that, those technologies were prevalent and being used, at that particular moment. And I don't think it's any coincidence. So.
Now, you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, and I'm here with my guest, James Walbert, who's a victim of electric stalking, and due to direct energy weapons or non-lethal weapons. Now, with the amount of the activity, we'll say now it seems to be like escalating in terms of the amount of cases, correct?
Yes, definitely so. We pick up new victims. It's slowed down quite a bit lately, but we work to the point of picking up new victims for like at least 3 to 5 new victims a month for like a good 6 or 8 months. We were becoming more and more and more aware of people that were, and it wasn't just, local here in the States. It was out of Canada, and it was out of Europe and Australia and even New Guinea, and New Zealand, places that you wouldn't, these are Aborigine third world countries, what's the likelihood of, somebody being able to set up some, huge entourage of electrical, or electronic, stations of equipment, because that's what I'm finding now, many years later, is that these networks are simple stations, like a very small crowbar antenna and a ham operator, and he's allowed to have a certain, area of broadcast, and he can, pretty much hit, any area in that, or hit any person or, object in that area with these styles of devices. A ham operator would have, access to these, to equipment that is able to do this to somebody all day long. As long as he or she had the financial means, that ham operator could pick up equipment and literally, eavesdropping on their neighbors and, illegally surveil or, electronically, voyeur on his neighbors day and night. So it's a very hard thing to, to live with, I guess you'd say. Knowing on that level, that everybody and their mother can have these electronics and be nobody. No government entities, no nothing. It's hard for me to even fathom the idea of it.
Yeah. Now, what would you suggest or say to people out there that might be experiencing these effects? I would definitely, if there's any, tidbit of advice, that I would give them is research, confirmation. That method has been something that has, has allowed me to, prevail a little bit more, than what other people have. Is do your research. Educate yourself on every single thing that that you feel is, scrutinizing your situation or that you feel is affecting you. Try to keep your conversations or your thoughts to yourself until you have the actual until you've done your homework. Don't just walk out and start asking people questions, because then the majority of people fear what they don't know. Ignorance is always fear. The rustling in the bushes could be a mouse or a lion.
9 out of 10 people get scared instantly and flee the area. You know what I mean? Because they heard a rustling in the weeds when they're camping at night. And the likelihood of it being a big, huge grizzly bear is very slim. It's more than likely a raccoon or something, you know. But a person's imagination gets the best of them every time. You know, I mean, so you have to be, you know, just research, development, and, you know, confirmation. And I truly feel that, you know, you will, you know, seek and find an answer that is, you know, validated. You know, there's going to be a reason that you're thinking this or suspecting this in your life. You know, definitely so.
So, I guess we'll reiterate to the listeners that might have been just tuning in. I guess a majority of the reasoning why you figured that they've chosen you was because of your invention, correct?
Yes. I didn't have, you know, and that's where my harassment comes in, you know, as being far more different than everybody else's. What I feel happened is that, you know, the person that's doing it to me was aware of, you know, all of the other victims. He was aware of this harassment and, you know, its effect, you know, and the difficulty level of, you know, proof and actual alleviation of this, you know, harassment out of a person's life. And usually what would happen, there was a big, you know, sinister strategy to what's going on. You know, I mean, mine's simple white-collar crime, extortion, but they're using this old crime and the techniques of this old crime to commit their crime because it's so successful in going unpunished. You know, I mean, down here in the States, I mean, this crime, electronic harassment, is noted as being the perfect crime because you can commit the crime for very huge periods of time. You can actually cause a horrible destruction to the person's life, and as soon as, you know, anybody catches on to you, it's literally as simple as turning off a switch, and then you are never found. So you've been able to commit this crime and destroy this person's life, if not, you know, cause death throughout the family and things like that, you know, horrible criminalities, and it is, you know, as simple to get away with as walking up and turning your TV off. No more, you know, I mean, and it's over with. They've not only conducted the crime, but they've actually now gotten away with it. So, you know, it's known as the perfect crime.
I have a question in the chat room. Somebody's asking, what type of invention was it that led to this type of stalking?
I developed a method and apparatus for the sanitization of pop cans, beer cans, and like Conagra vegetable cans. I basically had gotten a can of pop out of a machine one day, and I'm sure that, you know, anybody that, you know, purchases, you know, cans of, you know, pop or beverages like this can definitely confirm what I'm about to say is that if you ever look at that can, it's filthy. There's tons of dirt all over it. Well, mutual friends of mine, you know, had actually took a swab at school and found bacteria and, you know, microbes and things living on top of that can. Well, you know, and then what I did is I actually designed a machine, an applicator, and a roll of antimicrobial and antibacterial film that applies to the top of the can naturally with no adhesives or anything. It's biodegradable, and it's 100% recyclable, you know, and that's where, you know, I moved to market and patented it, and boom, that's where it started happening, you know. I mean, I patented the market. When you own a patent, you have a monopoly over the market for 20 years. Well, over a 20-year period, you know, with, you know, sales estimated in 2004, from 2004 till 2024, our estimated projected gross earnings of the profit were $12 to $17 billion net profit off of just that, the machine, the applicator, and the roll of film. So that's what I had developed and actually marketed, was a method and apparatus of pre-consumer sanitization of cans.
Now, what's your take on HARP and how it might play into all this?
I would think that, you know, the HARP system would definitely be something on a huge array that would give you the ability to conduct such things like this that are going on and happening right now. in my opinion, studying the electronics, studying all these small little tiny military operations and programs that are going on. It is all, and, learning knowledge about HAARP. It is all leading up to one project, the pre-development, the research and development of Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam is able to actually, and it's all about thought induction and alien visits and, active holography, is able to, reiterate the voice of Allah or the voice of God and force a country into submission because, basically what it's drawing to is a mock rapture out of the biblical book of, Revelation. That's exactly what Project Bluebeam is itself up to. So I feel that all these technologies are being tested through research and development, trial and error, and being perfected, and they're going to couple with HAARP, and then we're going to have, we're definitely going to live to experience Project Bluebeam in its full flex, and HAARP will be the reason why.
I have a question there. Sorry.
Go ahead.
What about over the, what's that thing they're starting to fire up, the Large Hadron Collider? CERN's doing? Do you know anything about that? Or any?
What is it called again?
The Hadron Collider, LHC. It's by CERN. I think it's over in Switzerland. Particle accelerator or something.
This is the very first time I've ever heard of it.
Really?
I've never heard of that yet. Yeah, I haven't heard of that yet.
Well, it's designed to look into the inner workings of dark matter, is it not?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And they're supposedly firing it up right now. It's supposed to be fired up in stages over months.
Well, they started in September, and it broke down, did it not?
Yeah. Spent billions of dollars making this thing.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's supposed to. I don't know. Supposed to. There was supposed to be a end all be all when that thing started up, but
open a black hole or something.
Yeah.
People were suggesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the first time I've ever heard of it.
You never heard of that?
Oh, go ahead. No, I haven't. That's not something I'm real familiar with. HAARP is about as high as it goes, and I do know that, if you were to take acoustics and focus them into one area at a very rapid, rate of frequency deployment, you can actually cause the ground to shake and separate. And HAARP is capable of doing that over a continental size chunk of land. So they can actually cause earthquakes, premature volcanic activity, and rainstorms, and it can actually, buck up rainstorms and all kinds of stuff with it. So that's about as high as it goes for me. HAARP is going to be about.
Do you think HAARP might have helped cause, maybe could have been behind, could they do weather warfare with that type of thing? Like, say that tsunami that happened on Boxing Day, could that have been caused by HAARP?
Yeah, most definitely so. Yeah, definitely. They can definitely cause ionosphere disturbances and, upper, stratosphere disturbances and things like that to happen. Knowing anything about, technology and the thunderstorms, how thunderstorms develop through ionic, diffusion, and vapor ionic diffusion, they're most definitely able to manipulate weather with by heating, the upper ionosphere. They'll just heat it up. They'll get it really super hot because we don't have anything that's able to actually penetrate the ionosphere. It's our and the ionosphere is basically our static belt, to keep bad or harmful electromagnetics from the sun from coming in and hurting us. So we are able to actually, focus on the ionosphere and then bounce frequencies off that ionosphere down to a substation, things like that. Ionosphere toggling and, things like that. That's what HAARP is basically for, is a very small constructed version of the ionosphere. We can actually create an ionosphere of our own that's just below our natural ionosphere that we can actually, make, holography and all kinds of spooky stuff happen. We can actually almost parallel the aurora borealis, that, in Alaska and those areas. And we can create something that's very similar to that with holography and lights and high active gases and things like that.
type of tools have you employed to combat these things? Is there certain tools that you've got a hold of to measure these frequencies that are affecting you? Like, I know you can measure EMF frequencies to an EMF meter. Is there something else that you've employed that helps you combat and document these effects and frequencies?
Yeah, most definitely. You know, I mean, that's where, you know, the interest had came up when I was, you know, watching paranormal stations, you know, or paranormal shows. Is that, you know, I mean, it's always intriguing to see, you know, ghostly activity and, you know, spiritual activity and things like that, you know, paranormal activity. But where I got, you know, very interested is in the type of equipment you guys are using. Is the exact same type of equipment that we are using. I mean, it is all EMF field, tri-field meters. We're now being on the board with Freedom from Covert Harassment Surveillance. You know, I'm like a technical advisor, you know, to the board of electronics and frequencies and things like that, because that's what I've dedicated my time to. We've now moved into considering the purchase of a device that is called an Oscar, and it is something else. It is actually able to pick up microwave auditory effect. It's an omnispectral correlator, and it's all electromagnetic. Its correlation is backed up by a portable microcomputer. It's capable of scanning audio frequencies, 40 hertz to 15 kilohertz, radio frequencies, very low frequencies, which is, you know, very, very close to an ELF or an EMF, microwave frequencies, all the way up to infrared from 850 nanometers to approaching the speed of sound, which is 1,000, actually would be 1,150 so nanometers of infrared employment, which would actually be, you know, infrasonics and ultrasonics and things like that. So yeah, I mean, we use equipment that is very, very similar to your detection equipment. You know, I mean, we're looking for very large, heavy deposits of electromagnetics. So yeah.
Do you also use an infrasound meter as well?
Yeah, definitely so. Infrasound, ultrasonics, infrasonics, and things like that. You know, and basically, I mean, a trick I learned down from one of my friends when I was getting detected down in Florida was that he had taken, and this is smart. You know, I mean, this is how you know a guy knows his stuff. He had taken an infrared night vision scope and was using it during the day, looking for infrared radiation hues and distortions of hue. And sure enough, he found it. I mean, this guy's smart. You know, I mean, I would have never thought of something like that. You know, of course, he's got, 41 years of experience, and I'm just now 37. So, you know, I mean, this guy's been doing it longer than I've been alive. But he's very, very smart. Very smart man.
That's funny because I employed something similar to that as well, where I got an X-ray lens for my camcorder. The very lens that Sony took off for reasons that they say for looking under voyeurism. But when you put this lens back on the camcorder and use the night vision during day, what amazes you about it is what it picks up in the atmosphere that you don't see with the naked eye. And we're talking about metallic particles in the very air that we're breathing that you don't see with the naked eye.
Yeah, definitely so. You know, that would be, definite confirmation of chemtrails and things like that. Oh, where did I see that at? I think it might have been your website I saw it at. And also, I would like to put you, in touch with, if you can, jot down this website. It's called Exotic Warfare. Her name's Carolyn Pallett, and she's amazing. I mean, she's got so much information over, Morgellons and chemtrails, and, I mean, she covers the scope. I mean, that's what's very beneficial about being in these groups is that you find not one group focuses on just, one thing. I mean, we have experts in the fields of, Morgellons and chemtrails and electromagnetics and military operations. We have experts that, are frequency, gurus, Army intelligence agencies, that, officers that have become victims, whistleblowers. These groups have got it going on as far as, being able to find gainful, validated, credible knowledge. It's very important.
I'll have to get back to you through email with that one, James. We've got a few minutes left. Did you want to get any extra information out there, or contact information or whatnot that you wanted to get it out to our listeners?
Yeah, most definitely. I would suggest, if there are people, that are, interested in the subject matter tonight and are looking, to broaden any, of their education or, information, to confirm or validate or just out of curiosity, freedom from covert harassment and surveillance. If you're just to, simply Google these terms, FFCHS, .com, there is a wealth of information there. There's another website that has lots of good technological information. She's an accredited electrical or electronic engineer, electrical engineer. www.raven, the numeral 1.net, raven1.net. She is very educated and has a lot of good information out there. Mindjustice.org. There's another very good website that's out there also. Freedom Fighters for America is another good website out there that's exposing, illegal government programs and technologies that are being used. I actually was working with him for a very long time in his business, and I had actually posted pictures of these devices, and rough diagrams on how the devices are, capable of being made at home as well as in the field. If a person is, looking for, a little more of the medical field, the bio effects of the technology is what I, is basically where my field is at. You can go to organizedcrimewaves.com, and on that website, you can find my name, Jimmy Walbert, and you can click on it, and it can give you a full scope of thermal, non-thermal, non-lethal technologies that are able to actually, manipulate neocorticals and, planocorticals of the brain, disrupt neural functions. It can actually amplify neural functions. The technology is so precise that it can actually, create massive neural secretions, of certain hormones and things like that. It can actually disrupt organ function and limbic functions and regional corticals of the brains and, things like that. So, there's a lot of extensive, very valuable, credible information out there if a person's interested in checking it out. Also, if they want to, kick me an email or something, my email address is the numeral 1strongangel@live.com. You can send me an email there.
Perfect. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and we certainly would love to have you back on another time.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to get it out there, and if you're interested in doing another show, give me a holler. I'll be more than happy to.
I certainly would love to bring you back on. Maybe a round table discussion with some other experts on this.
Excellent. I definitely will look forward to it.
Okay. Take care, James, and stay in touch.
I will. You too.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
I certainly want to thank James. He was a wealth of information about this subject that everybody needs to know about.
That was quite something.
Yeah. If you guys like the show, leave us comments on the website or email us at sopsinvestigation@gmail.com. We're not streaming right now, Derek, but
no, we're not.
What'd you think?
That was pretty incredible. that it just kind of like got like the tip of the iceberg there, you know, like especially with that exotic warfare. Like maybe she could come on. Have you checked out that site? Have you looked at it?
I briefly looked at it, and
he made it sound like she'd be interested in maybe, and she's got a lot of stuff from more gallons on here. Eh?
Yeah, well, like I think we're going to have a major show on more gallons.
Maybe get that guy from Vancouver on, get her on.
Yeah.
You know, get everyone's different takes on it, because like, you know, I don't know, it keeps popping up, and then with all this stuff, I don't know, man.
It's amazing. Yeah, it was great. Well, I guess we should end this. You know, thanks to everybody who's listening in. The archives now, because this is archived.
It's all archived, eh?
Yeah, this is archived now. Join us next. Yeah, join us next Sunday, as we will have Bill Bean on, and Johnny Hauser, who is the historian and tour guide for the Villisca Axe Murder House. You want to talk about an interesting story, Derek?
Is that interesting?
Check out the Villisca story, man. That is something else. Talking about bizarre. Yeah. All right. Until then, we'll see you all then. Take care.
Bye for now.